it depends actually which sector you are working in. Because if you talk about science and technology, even the environmental sector or forest, many of the decisions are based on those information. But apart from that, I think it's not only the research, but more than that also the community understanding sometimes, relations with the community, relation with the people. Those are other definers of what kind of decision you are going to make. So there will always be compromises, but information is considered seriously in many cases.
Decision-makers are information literate, but they have their own limitations because of the bureaucratic system exist. And they have their own boundaries and they have their own prejudices to have decisions. Because it's not easier for them to have a decision and then implement it, because they have to cross many roads to bring one decision into action at the grassroots level. So I think they are doing their best. They are information literate. We can't say that they are not, but there is a need for constant meetings, dialogues, discourses among policymakers as well as the development experts, so that they should know what gaps there are and how these gaps are to be addressed, because they haven't gone to direct implementation. We are the one who are direct implementers, and if there is a regular discourse and regular dialogue, I think this gap could also be filled in.
It depends. It depends from person to person. Decision makers, for instance, in India, politicians, they would be knowing more about the political part and the governance part. But when it comes to maybe information, maybe they have to depend on others. Most of the time, I think they will have to depend on others. They just cannot.
How can we improve their capacity to be more independent?
It's again a chain. You have a networking part. Maybe around 50 to 60%, because in India a lot is governed by popularism. A lot many is affected by, it's all about the vote bank kind of thing. So India, I don't know, because even when the politicians know that this is right, they may have to sway to the public opinion and then do what is just opposite to what they are supposed to do and what they shouldn't do, but they have to do. There's no other way out. For instance, when they hike the petrol prices or diesel prices, when there's a public outcry against it, they again subsidize it, they again lower the price. But in the long run, in the financial run, it's not the right thing to do, but they are swaying to the public opinion. So politics and this
they are not using much of research information in their decision making. They are using, but it is the intensity of use of research is needs to be worked out and should be made up crucial component for decision making.
What do you think one of their barriers for not using research is?
The one barrier is that research work is not bit organized or accessible, and LDIS is doing fabulous job in organizing in this line, organizing all the knowledge so that the decision maker from various sector can just browse through all the research and they can just keep on doing bit good and more informed level of decision making.
Wonderful.
I don't think our decision makers are information literate in the sense that if you put a researcher as a decision maker, then they need to know that where and how to make use of different information sources which are available, even including starting from the Google, because many do not know how to make effective use of the search engines. Coming to the policymakers, what we call the bureaucrats in India or the politicians, they hardly go through, they need to be literate, but only the problem is they don't have time. They always depend on their secretaries or they depend on the assistants who usually feed in the information. Like minister, he's dependent on the bureaucrat. Bureaucrat in turn, he's dependent on his assistants. And whatever information they dig through, make a note, that note ultimately goes to the ministers. We need to make them literate. Of course, there is a change. The younger generation of MPs who are techno-savvy, they are really much better literate than the senior leaders, because it's because of the education qualification and the education background and the family background from wherein they come in. But still, I think much more needs to be done in this sector. Like in India, there are different programs conducted by PRS India where they train the MLAs. They conduct different programs for them. So those kind of programs for the bureaucrats is very much essential.
A couple of research that came out recently, and that more specific case studies that shows that really policymakers are not necessarily evidence literate. So I think there are some organizations that are trying to work in building the capacity of, it maybe building capacity is not the right term, but building the understanding of what is good evidence and how it can be put into use and how it can inform policy. In India, it really depends on the sector. There are some sectors where, which are more evidence-informed, or that there's a bigger push for evidence-based policy in certain sectors. But it's not really the case for all the different sectors. I think in the sector of education, it's much more evidence-based informed, but I wouldn't be able to dwell more.
Yeah, I was going to ask, just as a follow-up, have you got any theory as to why particular sectors?
The reason why certain sectors maybe are more evidence-informed than others is probably because it depends on the systems in place, the networks, and you need also a policy champion at government level. So there's a whole range of factors that play to really generate that evidence-based revolution, if you can